We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans.
Not a single elected Republican voted to send relief checks.
Last night, President Joe Biden gave his first address to a joint session of Congress, and I want to compare that speech to the response that came from Jamaal Bowman. Jamaal Bowman, of course, a progressive Democratic congressman from New York. Now, Biden's address was more than an hour long. Bowman's was about 10 minutes, so not a direct comparison. But I do want to look at the differences and similarities between the messaging coming from both. So let's start with the first comparison here.
We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door.
Last month, not a single elected Republican voted to send relief checks to struggling Americans in the middle of a pandemic. So it's on us, as Democrats and progressives, to meet the gravity of the moment, and history will judge our actions.
So Joe Biden here gives Republicans credit for passing something that they didn't even vote for. Biden's quote, "We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks." The American Rescue Plan that included those rescue checks did not receive a single Republican vote. Why would Joe Biden give them credit? Now, I understand here the president's job is a bit different from the response from a progressive, but still, you don't have to make things up to try and appease Republicans or to try and appeal to Republicans. Bowman did the right thing here, hitting Republicans on the fact that that not a single one of them voted for the rescue plan, so they shouldn't get any credit for it, and that it's up to progressives and Democrats to actually get anything done. Next clip here revolves around the PRO Act and the minimum wage.
Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. So that's why I'm calling on Congress to pass Protect the Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize. And by the way, while you're thinking about sending things to my desk, let's raise the minimum wage to $15. No one working 40 hours a week, should live below the poverty line.
That's why Congress must pass the PRO Act. The Protect the Right to Organize Act would do away with so-called right-to-work laws, make it easier for workers to unionize, and even let independent contractors bargain collectively. We also badly need a $15 minimum wage, not phased in 10 years from now, but today. And if we need to get rid of the filibuster to do that, that's absolutely what we must do. If this pandemic has shown us anything, it's that the American worker is the backbone of our country. It might not be a popular idea around Washington, but the rest of us know that grocery store workers, nurses, teachers, and transit workers are all more essential than anything Wall Street does.
So you see there at the end of Bowman's comments, he points out how the working class do a lot more for the country than Wall Street does. Meanwhile, Joe Biden began his comments by complimenting Wall Street, but to be fair, also saying how the working class built the country. Good messaging from both there in terms of needing to pass the PRO Act and raising the wage, but only Jamaal Bowman called out the barrier to passing the PRO Act and the minimum wage, and that's the filibuster. So as long as Democrats need 60 votes, they're not going to pass either of these things. Joe Biden did not bring this up at all. He has the power here to call out who is blocking that progress. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And of course, Republicans, but you also don't really expect any Republicans to support anything Biden does. But in terms of filibuster reform, Manchin and Sinema are in the way. Manchin right now is pretending to back the PRO Act, but he's doing that while knowing that it's not going to pass with 50 votes, that it needs 60 votes, and that they're not going to get 60 votes unless they do filibuster reform, and Manchin is against filibuster reform. So it's this whole scenario where Biden, while saying the right thing, also fully understands that nothing here is going to get done as long as the filibuster is in the way, and for that matter, the parliamentarian. So they blame the parliamentarian for there not being the wage increase in the rescue plan, but they didn't have to listen to the parliamentarian. There's no rules saying they have to listen to the parliamentarian. They can get rid of it. They don't have to listen. The parliamentarian does not matter at all. So if Joe Biden actually cared about raising the wage to $15 an hour, he could have done it through the American Rescue Plan by getting Kamala Harris to ignore the parliamentarian. So all of this is lost in this part of the discussion. But that said, still, I guess, good messaging here from Biden. But if you don't have the actual ability or the urgency to pass what you need to get passed, what you're claiming you want to get passed, then all of this is just nothing but empty words. Next clip here is on criminal justice.
We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve.
Every single time I have to watch a video of a black man or a brown kid die at the hands of police violence, a little piece of me dies too. I am connected to every black man in America. Like them, my ancestors were kidnapped from Africa, robbed of their language, and stripped of their culture, religion, and God. And we continue to be redlined and killed by the police. I have one message for law enforcement. Stop killing us. I need for President Biden to say the same thing. Black people are not for target practice. We are simply trying to survive in the world stacked against us.
So this is the last comparison that I have, and it's not even close. Jamaal Bowman, of course, can speak to a lived experience, whereas Joe Biden cannot. So it is sort of, I guess, maybe an unfair comparison here. That said, any good leader should be able to recognize the lived experience of others and take on the solutions necessary. Joe Biden has not done that. The solution needed here is to reallocate police funds into other areas. Limit the numbers, because the issue is police culture. Check out my recent video on a couple of police laughing about having just assaulted an elderly lady with dementia. You're not going to fix this. And by the way, that was a white lady. So while the issue, of course, the black community is disproportionately impacted by policing, it still affects everybody. This is an issue that is deep in police culture. Training is not going to fix this. You can't train someone to not abuse an elderly lady with dementia. I mean, that should be obvious. So this is about limiting numbers, limiting power. And the only way to do that is to reallocate police funds or, defund the police, which is the same thing, but people get them confused or think defund the police means abolish the police. No, reallocate police funds to other areas, which Jamaal Bowman supports, Joe Biden does not. Now, overall here, since this is the last clip, I thought Biden's speech was fairly good, but the issue here, of course, is it's all just talk if you're not willing to get rid of the filibuster and actually pass some of this. So as long as you need 60 votes and you only have 50 Democrats in the Senate, you're not passing any of this. I mean, maybe they can still pass some of it through budget reconciliation, but there's still limitations on that. So you need to reform or get rid of the filibuster, and Biden did not make that an issue here. That has to be the central issue. None of this is getting passed without getting rid of the filibuster. I want to mention just one last thing since I couldn't find a place to discuss this. Biden also brought up his $1.8 trillion for families and education, which has actually some fantastic initiatives in it, including free preschool to all 3 and 4-year-olds, 2 years of free community college, national family and medical leave program, money for school meals to offer children for the summer, and extending the child tax credit. So he has a great plan here. But if you need 60 votes to get it through, then it doesn't matter. So ultimately, that's my issue with the speech. While some of the promises here that were made were fantastic, and I think clearly go above and beyond anything Obama promised during his 8 years, if you don't have the mechanism necessary to actually get it through, then none of what was said here ultimately matters.